Before we get right into this video, I want to give you guys a bit of a quick update. So thus far, in the past 12 months, I've already spent about $3,300 to $3,400 on the black ute. So even if it looks like crap, all the parts that are been ordered, that are on the vehicle, that are still coming, that are here, that need to be fitted, it's happening. Things are happening, but slowly. Something like spending $3,300 within 12 months for me in the past was incredibly hard to do in order to fix things properly. But now that I've been able to spend $3,300 in the past actually it's not even 6 months, it's about 7 months that I've spent $3,300, progress is actually happening. Now, last video we were talking about the head we bought. In this video we'll be doing something with that head and some parts associated with the head. The only disappointment was it did not come complete as I expected. But we did find out something, and I'll share that with you in a sec. But for the last update, today, aside from working on this, I'm going to be working on the white Pajero, hopefully getting it into a state where we could turn the key and start it and run it for the first time. You'll see the running, but you won't see any of the work I'm currently doing on the vehicle. It's just too much to try and record. It's already lunchtime when I'm recording this video, so essentially there's not really much time for me to work on the car. After today, I will probably not get time for another week or until next weekend, because of how much it takes to go to work, how much time is in between, and other duties that I'm associated with at the moment. So let's get into this video now. So today we're going to be partially assembling this head with parts. Now I'm going to note I've bought the cam, I've bought the roller rocker arms, and I've bought an arm that goes on top. So this would sit on top of all your top caps here. We'll run through these, and you'd have to make sure all the little holes align to this bar, because it's very sensitive, and if you do not get oil going through this bar, oil will not feed to the proper locations for bearing and lubrication. We also have all of the roller rocker arms to go on said shaft. So these are brand new, and they are as complete as I wanted them to be. I was going to be spending heaps more money on them. So they're in the packages, ready to go on. You can't get these mixed up. You have to know what is intake, what is exhaust, because they have different operating conditions that they work under, and that's what they're designed for. But they also have different angles. I believe the angle thing is the thing that's the key of why you can't mix them up. So you have to figure out which one's intake, which one's exhaust, and normally when you're looking at from the front, it'd be the top ones are intake, the bottom ones are exhaust. So this one's an intake, this one's an exhaust. So exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake. That's what we need to do. But this isn't going to happen for about another 3 to 6 months that these will be going on. They will be staying like this for about 3 to 6 months. I'm just going to do some of the fine tuning on this. So what is the problem with this currently? We have a front seal for this, but I've had to take it all apart again because of a problem. Oh, by the way guys, if anyone knows anyone that needs a bar, I literally have 2 more of them. The company just didn't want to stock them anymore and just sent them all to me that they had on the shelf, because no one buys these bars. I don't have really a reason. I also said to someone yesterday, I don't even think these things ever need replacing because these are hard and they never really wear out. And he said, no, they do wear out, and then you have to replace them. So I've got 2 spares. I don't know if I'm going to keep them, sell them, whatever, but in the moment, let's see what we can do with this. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm always going to put on the front one. This front one's actually in really good condition. I can turn this with my fingers easily enough. But the one thing I've forgotten to do today is put at least a drop of oil on all these to make sure it's all fresh, all nice and lubricated, especially before you put the bearings on. So this is special oil. This is using Royal, and it's a very expensive lubricant. If you can still get it, I have no idea. But this is the variant that my dad got for transmissions, and they've already tested it, and they don't. When they did the testing, apparently this oil was too good, and when they put this specific one into a transmission, because that's what it is, it's AT+, it actually destroyed the transmission. It's lubricants, because of the problems they had. Lubricity properties were way too high for a transmission, that it just made all the clutches slip. So I can turn this by finger right now. So what you do is you grab all your top caps and you put them on one by one until you find a tight one. And it does get tighter when you put more and more on. So 2 seems about right. Put on 3. Now that's a bit too tight for me to turn by hand. I'm going to take 3 off. I'm going to move to 4. That's not too bad. That one's a little bit tight, but not much. If I grab the last one, the only two that I had problems with 3 and 5. And if I put this one on, this one's not on properly. I'll find out. If I can turn it by hand, which it just locked up. So now that we know 3 and 5 are both locking up, we now know to focus our sights on those 2 specifically. And those are the 2 we're going to fix today and make work. So the idea with this cam is if you can't turn it by hand manually and doesn't spin freely and it goes tight, you have to grind down the bearings just a little bit to get them nice and neat. Now, I'm not going to advise anyone just do what I'm going to do in this video. I would advise you take it to professional with the machines to actually line bore and to machine the head properly. This is meant to be fully assembled anyway. I'm not going to take these out actually, I'm going to leave them in. These are only about 18 Newton meters of torque that these are tightened down to. I'm going to leave the front one in. Number 2, I'm going to take all of the ones out that I don't need to worry about, because the 2 that I need to worry about is 3 and 5, because these are the 2 that are making this impossible to spin without touching the lobes, because the lobes have leverage. Now if I can't spin this by hand at the front, at the bolt, I've got spare bolts. Can't turn it here at the bolt by finger, there's a problem. And what will happen is this cam will seize up, it will destroy your cam gear for your drive belt, and it will make the motor have a piston valve collision. We don't want that. I've already had that experience. If you look in my history, you'll see I destroyed my engine. That's link in the description below, so you get an idea of why I'm going to all this length to do this, and specifically in this stupid way. Now don't forget safety glasses, don't forget gloves. Those are things you're going to need. But one of the things I've got to do, I've got to take these caps off and do it one by one. I'm going to dry them up, and we can actually already see where the rub marks are on these top caps, because the lighting is not terrible enough. You can see the wear at the top, and if I flip it over you'll see it sort of at the bottom. It's that one spot that there's rubbing. Now what I've got to do is I've got to wear it in manually on the bench, and I've got to find out if that is the exact surface area or if it's not. So what I do is I've got to dry this off. I was told this by my dad, I was taught by him because he's the one that did this before and he's an engineer, and this is actually the reason my car's running is because of this method. And you get just a paint, a very light marker, not a paint one, and you just texture it in as much as you can. So I'm back. I have a choice of markers that I want to use. Preferably I want to use a black one, because black is going to show the most signs of wear in a scenario. White will blend in. So if I texture this in lightly, you'll expect to see exactly where the cam is making contact with the bearing in a not intended way. So if any spots show up after bolting it together and spinning it at least 2 times or 1 time, any of those high spots are the ones you have to deal with. Small touches they'll wear out in the bedding, but period, when you drive and you run the vehicle at high RPM, because that maintains your high oil pressure, so you shouldn't lose oil pressure. And then we let that dry for a few minutes. That's number 3 cap. You got to make sure it goes on the right way, which doesn't look like it's going to go on the right way. I've got to also make sure that this is right. Yes, that I have to look. I can look at this bar and I can say which way does it go, and those caps are in the right direction. So the number when you're sitting in the car, you can read it, but if you're facing at the front of the engine and you're looking at the numbers, you literally have to turn your head 180 degrees to read the number, so that's the best way to look at it. So I'm going to dry up another one and do the same thing. I'll grab my torque wrench, I'll set it up to the 18 that it's meant to be at, so I'd read on this specific one 3892AG-E110 tools, it would be set to 17 and 1. So you'd find 17 and you set it to the 1. And we don't need to tighten the front one is fine. That's free floating enough. If I can spin this cam freely with my fingers, it's all good. But if it's too tight, the bearings will fire up, the cam will seize, you'll have an accident with your vehicle. Now in this stage, it's sort of cheating, but if you cannot turn it by hand, like so, because there's no oil on that surface, you can just move it a little bit, a few degrees. But don't go too crazy because you only want to touch it a little bit so you can see where does this machining work need to be done. That's the wrong way. We now need to crack it. And these have an inbuilt locking mechanism so you don't use the spring to do anything serious. So I'm not going to damage it too easily, which is good. I just moved it a little bit, so there should be some markings on the bearing, the top cap, and it should be enough to signify how bad is the touching and what do I need to do about it. I told someone about, they saw that I was doing this yesterday and they said don't do it without oil. Well, this is the scenario. You can see where it's been touching clearly. There's your physical interactions there, the silver. Ignore the black. The black is just telling you this is where it's not contacting. Silver is where it is contacting. But also the oil actually just sort of helped to clean it off a little bit, so only needs a little tack. It's not a lot, but that's a lot in some perspective. And what I need to do is get that off the bearing, off the cam. So that's one done. Now I'm going to put on this one here. Anyway, this one should be dry. Yep. This can take 1 to 2 hours using this method to do the machining yourself. I wouldn't advise just doing it on your own. I'd advise getting a professional to help you do it and using professional machineries, because we don't have all the machinery to do this sort of stuff, so that's why I am doing it this way, and because we know what to do. Also note there is actually oil on the cam bearings, so even if I'm mechanically forcing this to turn over, it still at least has that little bit of lubrication. So if I go now, that one's actually not so tight. So that should be enough. There should be some markings on this now. Pull it off. And if you're concerned about taking too much material off, use a really fine emery, like 2000 grit paper, and just try to touch the areas you just need to touch. This one shouldn't be nearly as bad. In fact, that one's so good I would say it's pretty much not touching at this end. So the cap isn't touching. It is touching in some spots, but not really significantly. It's not touching on any edges that it should be. There is a bit of markings on it, but it's not really touching as much. So where it is touching, it's just touching. So I might have to put this back on anyway and tension this one just one more time, because it seems like this one here is just contacting a little bit, and wearing it in the cam, bedding it in, would fix the problem, because it's not a large enough surface area to do some serious damage. It's small enough that it won't do the damage. Look at that, it's spinning nice and freely. That's because of the oil and everything that's in there. So if I now crack those bolts, I want to see actual paint missing from every aspect of this top cap. So if there's not much, it's got to be suggested that it's probably the line boring on the bottom edge, on the bottom face inside the head, is out, which it shouldn't be, but it could be. And there we have it. There's your wear and tear. There's the edge. That's what we wanted to see. If we didn't see that, we wouldn't know where it's contacting properly. So there is a few points. A few points don't matter so much as other points. So I'm just going to wipe that down a little bit. It's got oil. Just wondering whether I want to use the AT or I want to use the mix. I'll use the mix because it's at least engine oil and AT fluids, because it's a really high lubricity, highest protection on the market that you could have gotten at the time. This is about $80 a bottle, I believe it was, or $60, and it's not stuff you can just buy off the shelf. Like, I think you could at one point, but no, it's a industry sort of secret. They want you to buy fluids, so they make cheap stuff that doesn't last you a lifetime. They only last you a certain period of time. That's how they make their money on lubricant, by keeping you coming back for more. They don't keep you coming back for more, as in you buy this once and you never change your oil again, then you're not getting anywhere. Dad actually has a bottle of this stuff, or a couple of bottles of this stuff in his air compressor, and it's run for years without an oil change. So, and it doesn't need one. It's still in good condition, that oil. So I will back it up. I'll say yes, that is absolutely true. That stuff is really a marvelous mineral oil. It probably lasts a very long time. Like, it's a lifetime oil that never needs changing. But also, it's not in a contaminated environment. That's probably why they don't necessarily change oils or anything. Okay, so that feels fine. Now that we know where the tackiness is, we're going to go into another phase. Now, I shouldn't be sweating, but apparently I am, and I will put this and the paper, if you can find the paper, that is. Paper's down here. Paper over the cam. Put this over top. Oh yeah, and I didn't mention this, but see these roller rocker impressions? They took this apart before they sent it. So the cams and everything were assembled at one point in their life. And that's what we know. So what we need to do is grab the ones we need to touch up. Just tacky. That one. And that one. Just need to touch them. Okay, that's how you do that. So what we do is we wipe it down. Grab the black. Mark it up again. There, done. Now what we've got to do is let them sit for a minute. Take this off. All the protection doesn't need to be there anymore because the dust is out. Then what we've got to do is just make sure that these are oiled, which they were. These are not dry enough to put on, so that's number 3. So this is a little bit of a tedious job, but it'll take you a little while, potentially even less if you're lucky. And you have to actually do these to torque, or else you won't get accurately the information you need to figure out if it's going to work or not. So what we do now, finger spinning, no. That's it, no more. So they're still tight. So this one here needs a little, so it's not nearly as bad as before, it's a lot better. It's touching on that one face. This one, it's actually doing pretty well. I like to say that one's not touching, but could always do it one at a time. What I'll do, I'll do the same thing I did again. Cover the cam, that over the top, goggles. Leave it. I don't want to overdo it, which I sort of did there, but I don't think it's too much. I think it might just be right on point. So if you have small impressions of interaction, should be alright. I'm just going to put this one in and see if I can spin it by finger, which I won't be able to because it's all glued up. Meaning I should realistically just change my method approach. This is actually wrong. I'm meant to get it to be tacky first, which already is. I'm going to take glasses off because the goggles keep fogging up. My head took about 2 hours because we had to do all the caps. Because we had new caps and they were different to the cam and nothing fitted. Okay, tension wrench, and I'm also going to remove, take a little bit of pressure off quickly because I want to lift up the cam a little tiny bit. I'm going to put. Okay, there we go. We've got lubricant in the cam bearing. A little bit of a dribble here. There we go to spec. There we go. No, it doesn't turn by hand. But if I turn it mechanically speaking, there is oil in there, it's just going to rub out what it needs to rub out. It's got tight spots in it. I'm cheating a little bit. Getting better every time, so this should take one more attack and then she's done. So it's just in the middle there. She is not. It is working. I'm going to actually do something a little bit different. I'm going to take this top cap and blow it up one more time because somehow that oil is rubbing off anyway. Because that one there, I believe, is actually contacting steel from another surface as well. So I want to be certain of it. if it is at all, I want to know how it's running on it. Put the front one on, which locates the cam. Grab number 3. Grab a drop of oil with a broken oil can. There's actually 2 drops because it slides over side. There we go, nice and tight. It's too tight. We still have contact on the top surface. Now for the moment of truth, are we contacting on both surfaces? That appears to be the case, yes we are. So what I suspect seems about right. I can't show you guys unless I pull the camera off the tripod, and the stand is broken. Realigning the stand is a pain in the butt. Everything's breaking. Had that stand for years. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit. There seems to be a lot of contact on the bottom bearing. So this is just contacting a little bit too much. So what I'll do, instead of using that other technique that I was showing you before, I'm going to get some new emery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a trick my dad used to fix my engine. He got a bar like this. To clean it up a little bit. So that should clean it up just enough on all of them. So I'll do. Use a bit more, use some degreaser, brake cleaner fluids, any oil lubes on this, get it off. I'll do the same for the paper. I'm going to buy more paper. You'll be surprised to know that the outer 2 bearings are actually getting more wear and tear than the middle. The middle one isn't getting anywhere there between those 2. So essentially, even though I'm trying to be equal, there is no high spots on this cam. Well, there is, but not as many as others. Those lobes. So that one's starting to look really like it's worn in a little bit now, and that will help with the cam. I don't want to overdo it, I just want to touch it up and get the cam fitting nice and neat. Now I'm going to just put a drop of oil here, 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 here. Grab the cam, seat it in there, because normally when it runs it will seat in itself. So we go 3 and 1. I'm actually going to fully assemble it this time around. I think I'll even, just because the paint marker is where it is. I also don't want it on there anymore. I want to take it off. Because I just want this to, if it touches, I want to only just touch, if anything. So it's not like major touches and it's still spinnable. That you could probably wear it in by just spinning it on the bench, or when you first start it, it just runs in. That's how you maximise the life, by not having too much surface area contacting. That little bit of wear is okay. Now why am I putting it all together like this? So I actually want to spin this with them all on there. And I feel like I can spin it right now by hand, and there are some tight spots, yes. But it's not like crazy tight, it almost free spins. And when it free spins after the braking period, that's when you're going to have your optimal performance start. And that's why it's like, I'm not worried. I can still spin it with these finger tight. I need to put down free and it has to be still spinning. Yep, look at that. So much easier like this as well. Nope. Locked in. But I am going to try and put this all down now. Because we've just touched all of them. So I want to make sure that it wears in nicely if it's going to wear in at all. Because the reason it goes tight is because it's metal to metal, not metal to oil to metal. And these don't specifically need to be tightened in any order, but normally you'd start from the middle and work your way out. If we go with this back on here, it is still super tight, except I think it's got some spots which are tight and some spots which are loose. And it is sort of getting better. That's one of the reasons I wanted to clean it up. Now what we've got to do, crack them all, find out where it worn in or whatever, find out where it's contacting again. But if you spin that really fast with oil for about a minute and that's it, don't overdo it because you have no oil pressure, so it could do damage if you do it for too long at high RPM. But with this oil it's pretty safe for a little bit longer than usual, which is kind of cool. But it's only just because the lubricity properties of it will protect the metals a lot better than normal. Wear on 3 again. Now there's wear on 4. And here's the reason why it was so tight. I didn't clean them all. That's why it was going tight, loose, because that stuff's properties would bind it up a little bit. So if you get a white tissue again, figure out where the wear is. So there's wear on 3, 4, and there's definitely wear on 5. But that's probably false reading from 5 because of all that texture. There is wear on 1, so right now it's trying to rebed in here. So that one's rebedding, and it's doing it to the contours on the cam. So whatever's on the cam is trying to imprint there, 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 and here. So it's definitely trying to bed in. It's nice and shiny. We're almost at an hour mark. I can't turn it by hand on 4 anymore. It's too tight. As it is now, it doesn't spin easily at all. Okay. You want this to spin like this. You want it to be this easy to spin, not so hard you can't spin it when it's all nice and torqued down. Okay. Has tight spots and loose spots, which is nice. So 2 is perfect. Because 2 isn't going to wind up. And 1 has absolutely nothing wrong with it. 1 is perfect. So there you go, there's 2 perfect ones here. They're examples of what these 3 should feel like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get the stick that my dad originally used. We'll find one similar and use that, because the steel bar is a bit too heavy and a bit risky. It goes bang bang bang. He used a wooden broomstick and a piece of paper, I remember now. It's all coming back to me. And I'm going to take the cam out and we'll do it his way, because his way actually did work. He also did use a Dremel to get rid of high spots, so right now it's just those 3 cam caps that have issues. And now we're on the final hour and 49 minutes remain on the video before it runs out of footage clip space. So I'm hoping we finish this video pretty soon, because I do not want to have to go into another segment of, oh well, this is part 1, there's a part 2. I just want a part 1. That's all I want. And I just want to speed up the clip for you guys to see. Because 2 hours, I could have done work on the white one by now. In these conditions I have to use an actual broom, which kind of stinks. Oh well, bad luck. Use a broom. lightly on the bottom but heavily on the top, because the tops are the tight spots. So it's clear that I'm almost done with this head. There is still some stuff here, but I'm going to have to change the way I'm recording because I'm out of time with the camera. It's about to run out of memory. There's all this black stuff here, and I've been checking all the top caps. Now I've got 3 perfect because this one doesn't seem to have any major wear marks. However, when you look at one of these, you can still see it's got a bit of wear in it on the edge still, and it's always that same edge that there's contact with, and that's why it keeps jamming up. So now I have to wear out those sections a little bit, bed it in with the paper, and then it should work. Now if I look at all of these lobes, get some tissue, wipe one. This one should be clean. It's not. That one's clean. Dirty. Dirty. So you can sort of see the distortion, like the difference in texture on the material. So it's not perfectly, it's not an even texture. Where it's nice and shiny and like a mirror, that is where the wear is occurring, including on number 2. That's not much, and the number 1 isn't really that bad. It looks pretty much like a brand new bearing. So if I go over here and look at this one, That one's pretty much right. Hang on, that's number 4. So that one needs some wearing in a little bit more. That one's alright. Yeah, so we're almost there, but I'm going to have to change this. I'll show you it when it's finished, show you it actually moving nice and smoothly, because the camera only has 11 minutes left, and probably going to be 10 by the time I finish this little clip. I'm going to try and wear these 2 on the bench manually with the paper, and I'm using a broomstick, and it just knocked over that box and broke it a little bit. Cam's over there now, and see what happens. So let's end this video off on a high note. It's not perfect, but can I put my hand on a socket and spin the cam? Kind of, it sometimes gets stuck, and then I can spin it. So it's got some tight spots in it. Can't use this one because I'm slipping every time I try to turn it, so there's not enough grip, which is why I got a bigger socket so I can get more grip. There it got stuck again. But at least if I go in here, most of the time I've been able to turn the cam by hand. Obviously this time, nope, it doesn't want to turn. So this is my high note. This cam is nice and loose now. It's looser than it was when I first got it. So that's the high note I want to leave off on. And this will have to be broken in steel anyway, mechanically, or via doing a little bit more emerying on the bits using piece of emery. There is actually no more wear occurring on these bearings. I've taken them off and put them back on. It will be now the base, which is the head itself, which has some friction spots in it. So the top caps are not tight anymore. It's now the head itself, and it's actually perfect. I don't see any more problems with it. I'm going to leave it on the high note here, and I'm going to get back to work on other stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Michael the Mechanical out.